My name is Lauren Metcalf, and I'm 26 years old. 3 weeks ago, my mother shoved a crumpled suit 2 sizes too big into my chest and sneered, "Wear your sister's old rag. You don't deserve new things. You're lucky we even let you live under our roof." My sister Brittany stood there in her brand new designer suit, arms crossed, smiling like she'd won another prize. She always got the new car, the paid-off apartment, the best connections. I got the hand-me-downs and the daily reminder that I was the family burden. But here's what my parents and my perfect sister never saw coming. I was walking into the biggest interview of my life at the exact company where Brittany worked, 3 floors directly above the interview room. The CEO took one look at me in that pinned-together disaster, stood up, draped her own blazer over my shoulders, and said with ice in her voice, "I know exactly who put you in that suit." She wasn't talking about my parents. She wasn't talking about my parents. And that single moment was the beginning of everything they thought they controlled, completely falling apart. Before I continue, if you find this story worth hearing, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with what I'm sharing and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I'd love to know. Now, let me start from the beginning. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, in a house where there was always enough. Just never enough for me. My parents weren't poor. My dad, Craig, worked union electrical jobs for 30 years. My mom, Tammy, managed the front desk at a dental office. They owned the house outright. 2 cars. A backyard with a fence they'd repainted twice. But if you'd asked me growing up, I would have told you we were barely getting by. Because that's what they said every time I needed something. New shoes for school? We can't afford that right now, Lauren. Wear Brittany's old ones. A graphing calculator for AP math? Your sister's still works fine. A laptop for college? They gave me Brittany's old MacBook. The one she'd already replaced with a brand new one they bought her for her freshman year at a 4-year university. I went to community college. They said that was all they could manage. Brittany's room got converted into a guest suite the year after she moved out. $30,000 in renovations. New flooring, new fixtures, a sliding glass door to the backyard. When I asked why they couldn't help with my textbooks that semester, my mother said, "We just don't have it, Lauren. You know that." I believed her. For years, I believed all of it. The thing about being the second daughter in a family like mine is that you don't just get less. You get told you deserve less. And after hearing it long enough, you start building your life around that belief. You stop asking, you stop expecting. You learn to make do with whatever falls off the table after everyone else has eaten. I was a graphic designer, freelance. I worked off an iPad with a cracked screen because I couldn't afford a new one, and I'd taught myself everything: color theory, typography, layout, from YouTube tutorials and free courses. My portfolio was good. I knew it was good. But every time I thought about applying for a real position at a real agency, I'd hear Brittany's voice in my head. "You're talented, Lauren, but you don't have the discipline for a full-time role. That's just being honest." She said that to me at Thanksgiving 2 years ago, in front of our parents. My mother nodded. So I stayed freelance. I stayed small. I stayed exactly where they'd put me. Until 5 weeks ago, when I saw a listing for a junior designer position at Ridgewell Creative, one of the best agencies in Portland. The posting described exactly what I could do, exactly the kind of work sitting in my portfolio. I stared at it for 2 hours before I hit submit. 3 days later, I got the interview confirmation. I should have been excited. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table in my studio apartment and felt my stomach drop, because I knew what came next. I'd have to tell my parents, and I'd have to ask for help. Sunday dinner at my parents' house. The same table, the same seats, the same ritual. Mom at the head. Dad in the garage until the food was ready, then at the far end, saying nothing. I sat in the middle where I always sat, close enough to be useful, far enough to be ignored. I waited until Mom set her fork down. "I got an interview," I said, "at a design agency. A good one." She didn't look up. "That's nice, honey." A beat. Then, "Oh, did I tell you? Brittany just got another raise. Third one in 2 years. Her boss absolutely loves her." I watched her redirect the conversation like she was changing lanes without signaling. My interview wasn't worth a full stop. It was a speed bump on the way to talking about Brittany. "I need a suit," I said. "Something professional. The interview is important." My mother set her napkin down. Slowly. The way she did when she was about to say something she'd already decided before I opened my mouth. "Lauren, we already spent so much getting you through school. Do you know what tuition cost us?" It hadn't cost them much. Community college. I'd paid half myself. But she said it like she'd financed Harvard. "Your sister has a suit. A perfectly good one. I'll dig it out." "Mom, it won't fit. Brittany's taller than me, and it's old." "Then make it work." She picked up her fork again. "You don't deserve new things, Lauren. Not when you haven't proven you can keep a job longer than 6 months." That sentence landed where it always landed. Right in the center of my chest, in the spot that had been soft since I was 12 years old. I didn't argue. There was no point. You don't argue with someone who's already written the verdict before the trial. When I left that night, my mother handed me a garment bag. The cheap kind, more like a trash bag with a zipper. Inside was a charcoal suit that smelled like the back of a closet. 2 sizes too big. Shoulder pads from another era. A loose button on the left cuff. I took it home. I laid it on my bed. I stared at it. Then I got out the safety pins. The night before the interview, I stood in my bathroom, the one with the cracked tile and the light that flickered when it rained, and I pinned that suit together. I pinned the waist. I pinned the hem where it dragged. I folded the cuffs and pinned those too. 7 safety pins total. I counted them. I almost didn't go. I stood there looking at myself in that mirror, in a suit held together by metal and stubbornness, and I thought, they're right. I look like exactly what they think I am. Then I looked at my portfolio on a cracked iPad propped against the sink. 16 projects, 3 rebrands, a non-profit campaign that increased their donations by 40%. My work was good. My work had always been good. If they judged me by this suit, they didn't deserve my work. I hung it on the only hook in my closet and turned off the light. The morning of the interview, I got dressed in the lobby restroom of Ridgewell Creative's building. I'd taken the bus. The suit was too bulky to wear on public transit without people staring, so I'd carried it in the garment bag and changed in a stall. Standing in front of the restroom mirror, I pulled the jacket straight and checked the pins. That's when I noticed it. Inside the collar, stitched in faded thread, were 2 initials. TM, not BM, not Brittany Metcalf. TM, Tammy Metcalf. This wasn't Brittany's suit. It was my mother's. From the 90s, maybe earlier. The cut, the shoulder pads, the fabric. It was decades old. Brittany had never worn this suit. My mother had told me it was your sister's old suit. But that was the first lie. The first one I could prove. I adjusted the pins. I walked into the lobby. I pressed the elevator button for the 6th floor. The receptionist smiled at me the way people smile at someone they feel sorry for. I smiled back. I didn't need her pity. I needed 20 minutes in a room with whoever was hiring. The interview panel was 3 people, 2 mid-level managers flanking the center chair. In the center sat a woman in her early 50s, silver-streaked hair pulled back, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She looked up when I walked in, and her eyes did something I didn't expect. She didn't look at my face first. She looked at my shoulders, at the way the suit hung 2 inches past my actual frame, at the safety pin catching the overhead light near my left cuff. Then she looked at my face. and her expression shifted. Not to pity, but to something sharper. Recognition, almost. Like she was comparing what she was seeing to something she'd been told. She glanced down at a tablet on the table, tapped it once, looked back at me. Then she stood up. She walked around the table, took off her own blazer, navy, fitted, expensive, and held it out to me. "Wear this," she said, "and sit down." I took it. I put it on. It fit. The interview lasted 45 minutes. They asked about my portfolio, my process, my experience with brand identity. I answered everything. I was good. I knew I was good. At the end, the two managers left. The woman in the center, Donna Hale, CEO and founder of Ridgewell Creative, stayed. She looked at me across the table and said very quietly, "I know exactly who put you in that suit." I assumed she meant my parents, that maybe she saw a young woman in an ill-fitting suit and understood the kind of family that produces that picture. But there was something in the way she said, "Who?" Singular, specific. Not, "What kind of people?" Who? As if she knew a name. I didn't ask. I shook her hand and left. I wore her blazer out of the building because she told me to keep it until I came back. I walked to the bus stop in a CEO's blazer and my mother's 30-year-old suit, and I didn't know yet that I'd just walked into the middle of my sister's carefully constructed lie. Brittany called that evening. I was back in my apartment, hanging Donna Hale's blazer on the hook next to the pinned suit. My phone buzzed. "Hey, how'd it go?" Her voice was bright, interested, the way she always sounded when she wanted information. "Good, I think." It felt good. Where was it again? She'd already asked me this. A week earlier, when I first mentioned the interview, I'd told her then. Now she was asking again. "Ridgewell Creative," I said. 2 seconds of silence. Not 1, not 3. Exactly 2. The length of time it takes someone to absorb something they already knew but needed to hear confirmed. "Oh, cool," she said. "Good luck." She hung up. I set my phone down. Something felt off. I couldn't name it yet, but it was there. A frequency just below hearing, like a dog whistle only my subconscious could detect. 4 days later, I was sitting in a coffee shop on Hawthorne, the one with the wobbly tables and the barista who always spelled my name wrong, when someone said my name from behind me. "Lauren? Lauren Metcalf?" I turned. Megan Sawyer. We'd overlapped at Portland Community College, both in the design program. She'd gone full-time at an agency a year before I went freelance. We weren't close, but we were friendly. The kind of friendly where you'd stop and talk for 10 minutes if you ran into each other. She sat down. We caught up. She asked about freelance. I asked about her job. "Still at Ridgewell?" she said. "Junior designer. 3 years now." My coffee cup stopped halfway to my mouth. "Ridgewell Creative?" "Yeah." She tilted her head. "You know your sister works there, right?" The room got very quiet. Not literally. The espresso machine was still grinding. Someone's kid was still yelling about a muffin. But inside my head, every other sound shut off. "What?" "Brittany. She's on the 3rd floor. Senior brand strategist. Been there like 4 years." Megan said it casually, like it was public knowledge, like everyone knew. Everyone except me. Brittany had never told me the name of her company. Every time I'd asked, it was an agency downtown or a creative firm. You wouldn't know it. I'd stopped asking because I figured she didn't want me comparing my freelance work to her corporate career. But she worked at Ridgewell, 3 floors above the room where I'd interviewed. "What floor did you say?" I asked, keeping my voice level. 3rd. She's up in strategy. I set my coffee down. I thought about Brittany's call. Where was it again? She'd already known. She'd known before I walked in. I thanked Megan. I told her it was good to see her. I meant it. She'd just given me something without knowing what it was. I left the coffee shop and pulled out my phone. I typed Brittany Metcalf Ridgewell Creative into the search bar. Have you ever found out a family member was deliberately keeping something from you? Something that changed how you saw everything? Tell me in the comments. The Ridgewell website had a team page. Clean layout, professional headshots, short bios. I scrolled until I found her. Brittany Metcalf, Senior Brand Strategist. The headshot was polished, studio lighting, the kind of photo that says, "I belong here." Below it, a bio paragraph. I read the summary line first. Overcame significant family hardship to pursue a career in creative strategy. Family hardship. I read it again. Family hardship. Brittany lived in a paid-off apartment our parents helped her buy. She drove a car our parents co-signed. She went to a 4-year university on their dime. She had never, not once, gone without. I clicked the full bio, and I read it. Growing up in a household where resources were scarce, I learned early that creativity was my only way out. I put myself through community college while working part-time to support my family. I wore hand-me-downs and shared a room with my sister until I was 18. Design wasn't a career choice. It was survival. I stopped breathing. Community college. That was me. I went to community college. Brittany went to a university, working part-time to support the family. That was me. I sent money home when I freelanced. Brittany never sent a cent. Hand-me-downs. That was me. I wore Brittany's old clothes. Brittany always had new ones. Shared a room. That was technically true, until I was 10 and Brittany was 14, when our parents gave Brittany her own room and I stayed in the smaller one. Every single detail in that bio was my life, not hers, mine. She hadn't exaggerated her story. She hadn't embellished. She had taken mine, the whole thing, detail by detail, and put her name on it. She wore my life the way I wore her suit, something that didn't belong to her, held together by the assumption that no one would check. I sat in my apartment and stared at that screen until the words blurred. Then I screenshotted every line. I saved them in a folder I named Proof. My hands were shaking, not from sadness, from something colder. I looked at my cracked iPad, propped on the desk next